Okay, we're live on Facebook. When 68-year-old Nancy James of North Fort Lauderdale, Florida, complained about the noise at the pool party at her community pool, 16-year-old Joseph Before picked her up and tried to throw her into the pool while she was holding her two little doggies on leashes. He slipped, and the two fell to the ground while she tried to get away. Of course, someone filmed the incident and posted the video on Twitter. James suffered injuries to her leg and her shoulder and has lots of bumps and bruises. No one should ever have to go through that. I didn't really get to walk in, and this kid comes from behind, she said. The 16-year-old turned himself into police and has been charged with battery. He's not going to ever do this to anyone else, James said. His excuse, an undeveloped teenage brain.
Wow.
That's the protest.
Yeah.
An undeveloped teenage brain. Hey! Who's in here? Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. A round of applause, please, for Mr. Cookie himself, Joseph Sempervivo.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Bill Maher, what is going on with this N-word? Do you know what he said? Because I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I don't watch Bill Maher.
Neither do I. Yeah, I wouldn't think you would. But, they're doing these replays of this. But I haven't caught one. Does anybody behind the glass know what your liberal guy Bill Maher said? I know he used the N-word. I know Oprah's all upset. Have you seen this at all, Mr. B?
I haven't had time to see it because I've been training Phil for my vacation.
Okay, well, do me a favor then. Would you please look into that right now and give us a full report as soon as you get it? What are his words, quote unquote? If you could find this, I'd appreciate that. Mr. B, good morning, Mr. B.
It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting because if you look at the 5 on Fox News,
yeah,
the other host, the left-leaning Democrat strategist, made a racial comment also about Haitians, and it's just a very interesting thing that you're seeing the leftists become are the racists. Well, they've always been racist in the sense that they believe in depressing the the minorities. That's everything they believe in is about holding minorities down because they're not smart enough. If you look at all their policy, it's about increased Medicaid. It's about increased affirmative action, the whole thing, as if they're not intelligent enough to succeed on their own.
Oh,
which is the opposite. They are intelligent enough.
Yeah, and then those behind it really know. You want to know how to boil a frog. If you throw it into boiling water, it'll jump right out. But you put it into cold water and just slowly turn up the heat.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. They get used to getting a free check. Oh, I can't really get a job or they'll cut me off from the funding. So you're kept down.
Yeah.
And the Lord wants you to go out there, black, white, Hispanic, Haitian, whatever you might be. Let me tell you, you got a friend in Rhett Palmer out here saying there's nothing like. Look, I was a lazy hippie when I was I think I was 16 years of age, and I was hanging around with my older brother, and the big thing was screw the establishment, tear down the establishment. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had friends that were radical. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I was a member of Students for a Democratic Society, but the only reason I was a member is because it was
Bill Ayers.
It was the social thing to do.
Yeah, like Bill Ayers on Obama's campaign, putting in bombs. He built bombs, did prison time.
No, I was never involved in that. But anyway, the point is that if we had gotten control of the country, what would we have done with it? And I don't know where I was going with this now, but anyway. So you don't know what he said.
I know he used the N-word, but I don't,
So, well, this is the thing, though. Why doesn't somebody curb the way the N-word is used in these rap songs? How come nobody,
Yeah, we don't know.
This?
In defense of Bill Ayers, I have no idea what he said or did, and I don't know if he was trying to prove a point. I've watched his show a couple of times.
Yeah.
Also, he does that show on HBO or Showtime where they go into.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, he does.
I don't like him. I find
Me
him
either.
bitter, vitriolic.
Yeah. He's an atheist.
I have good radar, and he's underneath it. I don't think he's a happy person. I don't know if he's hardly alive. There are the walking dead, and there are multitudes. And Jesus said, "Let the dead bury the dead. Just remember what the good book said. Out of Egypt, the Jews they fled. Let the dead bury the dead."
My one of my dear friends, he's super far to the left, and he's my best friend through college and everything else. And
like Mr. B is our token lefty here.
And he and his mom just love Bill Ayers. I mean Bill, whatever. Maher. Thank you. And we were out in L.A. one time, and he was in a restaurant that we were eating at, and they ran Tony, who works for Access Hollywood, and his mom went up and said, "I just got to tell you, I love your program." And he turned to her, he nodded his head, not even really, other than that, no acknowledgement, and turned his head back around. And I understand he's out, he's eating, or actually he was drinking at the bar, but he.
That's because individuals don't count. When I go out to the mall here, or I'm on the streets of Vero Beach, or wherever I might be, and somebody says, "Oh, Mr. Palmer, I listen to your show every day," stop and talk to them. You know what? Everyone counts.
I've seen you do that. Yeah. Even while you're in the middle of a meal. We were at a restaurant together doing an interview with Mike Norris. And people came up to you
What's Norris's son? What's
Mike Norris. Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris's son.
Yeah. But you got interrupted. It was kind of funny. They came up to you and started talking to you. And you stopped what you were doing. And you talked to them and said, "Hey, afterwards, if you don't mind, I'm doing an interview right now, but afterwards, I'd love to talk to you one-on-one." So you kept me there waiting after the interview with Mike, and you talked to them for about 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, and I've seen you do that.
Well, I just genuinely like people.
You do.
You know what? If you don't genuinely like people, you're not having too much fun in this world.
Right.
I mean, it's just like chasing filthy lucre. It's like some of these guys, you get so caught. Okay, let's first of all, you get it. You're growing up. You want to have a family. You get out there and work. You start a family. It's all for the family, and then you get addicted. It's a sort of an addiction to going out, and then that becomes your goal rather than the original vision of having a family and love. Your goal is to just make money, work, and just like they say, studies prove that if you're making 50,000 to 50 million, the happy quotient is about the same. And if you're spending all your time just going out to make money, it's all you're doing, and that becomes your goal, and it takes over where you once did it for another reason. That becomes the goal rather than the original goal, and it happens. People get seduced. It can happen to all of us. And then you end up on the other side, not really that happy.
Well, when you look at the whole happy quotient thing, happiness is an internal thing. And here's the fault of that. Here's the fault of the study. The fault of the study is it's trying to quantify happiness based on dollars earned. But individuals are internally happy, but they can be very stressed. So what they did not include in the study that I read was a stress quotient. So what you find is at 50,000, the stress level can be very, very high because you're trying to barely make it at $50,000 a year versus someone making $75,000 to $100,000 a year. And of course this varies, and everybody knows, on community. If you're making $50,000 a year in New York City, you're poor. You're really poor.
You can't get along in there. They have classes on how to survive on $200,000 a year in New York City.
Yeah.
And that's not laughing.
No.
And I don't know how it is. You've been to New York City, right?
Oh, yeah.
I spent some time with them. My grandfather used to have a place on East 50th between 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah.
Anyway, and, I bump into this guy that you park your car, and he does that for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, valet.
Yeah, and then he goes somewhere else and he does some other job.
Yeah.
And these people are working 16-hour days every day, and they don't live in the city. They commute on the train, living up in Brooklyn because they don't have an idea how to get ahead. No one ever taught them. Of course, no one ever taught me. What is the difference with some people? And we don't have to worry because dumb people don't listen to talk radio,
right.
and lazy people don't listen to talk radio.
Correct.
But the people that are listening generally, this is generalization though, are going to be people that will benefit from this conversation. I often wondered, that I was thrust living on my own at the age of, 14 or 15 in a rooming house. I had to teach I didn't have a dad really. My biological father was killed, and no one ever really walked into that exact position of being a dad. And, no one ever took me fishing or anything. This isn't a boo-hoo story. I'm just telling the truth. So I had nothing, and had a very prosperous early childhood, and so then later on decided to become a songwriter. I'm living in the ghetto, which really was a great experience. I mean, I ended up living in a section of town in Troy where I drove through when I was younger and went, oh my God, look at this. And later on, I said, how did it come that I ended up renting a $150 a month apartment here, writing my songs every day?
Yeah.
And it was like, I can't even believe, except by the hand of God, that I went from that to this.
Right.
Pretty
but you're
amazing.
saying you were autodidactal, like you were self-taught.
Well, I just picked up any book I could.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to read. Dropped out of high school. Then got the GED, went back to school, and I took Social 101, Social 102. I took, English, what do they call it? Literature 101, whatever it is. I took those twice each. I said, I got to compensate for this because I knew I had a lousy vocabulary.
Wow.
So, and I was told by a friend who said, read, because reading's power. That's why for these kids out there, anything we can do with this program, our magazine, anything we can do to help kids read, that's the secret. I don't care what they're doing. And I tell you what, somebody sent me a rap song the other day. And this kid was doing this whole rap thing, and it was actually a good rap song. And I was listening to it, I was going, my word. It may not be great, it may not be filled with a bunch of allusions or illusions or whatever it might be, but I tell you what, this kid was writing good rhyming poetry. He had to know words to do it, and I said, hey man, this is great, this is poetry.
Yeah.
It's just, boom-pity boo, bippity boo.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they're exercising their brain. I don't care. Just because you don't like it, and I don't like it. And I hope there's not rap in heaven. But,
Speaking of reading, and it is so important. Like our kids listen to your program, and little Joseph and Giorgio.
They like to read.
They love to read.
That's because they have a good
reads,
mom.
Yeah, Giorgio reads a book a day, and Joseph does one every 3 days. But Joseph reads about 700 to 800 page books. And
No.
yeah, he did. He finished the whole Harry Potter series. I think there's 8 books. The whole Harry Potter series in 2 weeks. That's 8 books at
Well, that
6 to
seems
800,
impossible.
6 to 800 pages. 6 to 800
Oh, my
pages of
word.
each book. Yeah, in 2 weeks. Maybe it was 3 weeks, but
No, you're probably right. My mom used to read about 5 books every week.
yeah, it's really cute. We bought these little
I don't
lamps for each. We have 2 bunk beds in 2 sets of bunk beds in one
Yeah.
room. So each kid gets into their little bunk bed, and they have these little lights, these little flat lights that they hit a button on, and it towers over their shoulder, and they read. So each kid reads every single night.
Oh, every night. You give them
every
that
night.
time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Like
It's
Hardy
their time.
Boys. Do you remember reading the
Oh,
Hardy
yeah,
Boys when you were
I
a
do.
kid?
I do.
I mean, that's one of my greatest memories, laying in bed.
Reading
the
Hardy.
Hardy
Oh, you go to
Boys.
another world, and
Yeah.
we first do the Catholic challenge, prayers, and so I go in the room, we all pray, and then they all read before and after that. So it's really kind of great.
Uh-huh. Yeah, reading. Also, reading is knowledge. I mean, and So anyway, but the point is, I wish there was some way. Sometimes I wish I could. I'm not really an organized. I'm not a teacher like you are.
Mm-hmm.
You teach real estate courses for the
And
local
finance.
college.
And insurance and finance.
You do.
Yeah, I have 2 classes coming up. One in the 26th of what month is this? June. It's a 6-week course. It's a finance course for business, associate and bachelor's degrees.
Yeah.
And then I'm teaching a real estate also. And the finance class is Mondays and Wednesdays.
Yeah, but in order to, they say if you're going to learn something, like let's say There's an orchid here in our studio. If you're watching on Facebook, you can see it. If you're listening to radio, obviously you can, or YouTube. But so you said, Rhett, I want you to give a speech. The president's going to visit my home out here west of town, and they want to know about. His wife really wants to know about orchids. So we're only going to give you 4 minutes, but could you speak about orchids? I know nothing about orchids, but if that's the way I can get in to be at your house and meet the president, okay, I'm happening, man. So what am I going to do? In order to teach it, I've never had much, but all of a sudden I'm going to go because I have the responsibility factor. There's an old saying: if you would learn it, teach it, because then you're going to put more effort into it. It's our funny little weird egos that God made us, because we tend to poo-poo or those that are philosophical ego and he's egotistical, whatever. But without our ego, without some semblance of pride, not false pride, not self-centered pride, but is all pride self-centered? I don't know, because we know pride is one of the things that really ruins people's lives.
Yeah,
they're blinded by pride. Yeah, I mean, somebody's out there. I used to work as a security guard at Albany Medical Center, and I made friends with these two black men that were working there. The one kept telling me about Jesus. He go, "Oh, child, Mr. Morell Diggs. I hope I see him on the other side of eternity." But he'd sit there reading little teeny tiny book Bibles, and he'd be reading it every night. Look at this child. Look at this. But he planted seeds with me, And then there was this other guy. This other guy's working 3 jobs so he can have a new Cadillac.
Yeah.
Because it gave him prestige and self-esteem to himself. But the thing is, it's you got to be careful about that stuff, because maybe he could have not worked 3 jobs and spent more time with his family. Now, I know another guy named Charles, and he's dead and gone. He always had to have a new Cadillac every year.
Mm-hmm.
And men are desperate for that esteem.
I think there's positive and negative ego, and positive ego is kind of looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with self-actualization at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
That's when you really benefit from ego, because you're studying.
Self-actualization. Now, I don't know that. I've been reading that, but what is that concept? It's been years since I heard it, and somebody out there listening doesn't know. When we come back, let's talk about self-actualization. I want to tell you, this is your guru of the airways. When we come back, we're going to talk about self-actualization and how to live off the prana in the air. Oh, so good. Yeah. We'll be right back. You playing the meditation ad for today? Remember, that should be the meditation ad. That lady that's supposed to be playing every day, multiple times to promote it. I wanted it once every hour. Have we been playing? I haven't heard it once on here. Inviting people to go to the meditation classes. I hope it played yesterday and the day before.
Is a not-for-profit 501c.
Hey, are we on Facebook right now?
Yeah.